When I was growing up, my dad always told me that when buying a new bike, you had to choose from two of the following three descriptors: lightweight, durable, and affordable. In other words, you could buy a bike that was durable and affordable, but it probably would be pretty heavy. Or you could get something that was lightweight and durable, but it was gonna be expensive. But to be honest, I think I just found a bike that might have broken that rule. Meet the Superior XF 9.6 DC. Lightweight? I mean, it's built around an XC race frame, so definitely. Durable? For sure. Just look at the Shimano group set, DT Swiss wheels, and RockShox suspension. And what about affordable? Well, between Superior's commitment to keeping costs low and BikesOnline's legendary price slashing, you end up with a premium carbon fiber mountain bike for the same cost you'd usually spend to get an aluminum base model from other brands. Sound up your alley? Well, let's go ahead and take this on a ride and talk a little bit more about why I think the XF 9.6 DC just might break my dad's old rule. So, lightweight, durable, and affordable. According to my dad, a bike can't be all three of those things, but I really do think this Superior XF 9.6 DC actually does check all three of those boxes. And let's start with weight. This is built around basically the same frame that Superior uses on their World Cup cross-country bike. The only real difference is that it has a longer stroke shock, which bumps travel from 110 to 130 millimeters. Speaking of the shock, there's a flex stay suspension design in the back, which removes some pivots, making maintenance less of an issue, but also helping keep weight down. Pair that with these fast-rolling Schwalbe Wicked Wheel tires, and this thing is explosive, both downhill and up. And that makes it, of course, a lot more fun to pedal, but also really fun and playful on these flowing descents that this bike is built for. Now, at this point, you're probably wondering how light the bike actually is. And my size large, built up, tubeless, and without pedals, came in at 23.8 pounds or 12.8 kilograms. That is super light. Again, that's approaching cross-country bike territory, but this has 130 millimeters of travel front and rear. Elsewhere on the frame, you get all the standards and features you'd expect. So UDH compatibility, you get nice clean internal cable routing. There's an integrated chain guard, or I guess, yeah, chain stay guard, but also chain guide as well, just to help with chain retention. There's even a nice, pretty robust and large down tube and bottom bracket protector. So, you know, if you happen to bottom it out on a roll, whoa, speaking of, or are getting stuff flung up at the bike, shouldn't impact the carbon. While we're talking about the frame, we might as well talk about the bike's geometry, which, if I could sum up in just a word or two, it would be well-rounded. It's definitely not got the most progressive numbers, which keeps, you know, mellower trails like this a lot of fun, but also it's not, you know, a super twitchy XC bike. It's got about a 65.5-degree head tube angle. It's got the front wheel out there in front of you enough that, you know, you can kind of go into a section of routes like this without worrying about having a brake check. And then a 75.5-degree seat tube angle combined with a 470 millimeter reach. That puts you in a slightly more kind of aggressive forward-leaning body position than a lot of modern trail bikes. And that again comes from this bike's cross-country routes. And that encourages, you know, aggressive riding on the climbs, you know, really leaning forward and sprinting and carrying speed up the hill. But also the slacker seat tube angle is nice on the descents as well, because it keeps that seat out from behind you. So when you lower the dropper post, it's kind of like behind your knees instead of right between them. And I like that. I mentioned the tires a second ago. These are Schwalbe Wicked Wheels, 29 by 2.4 inch front and rear. And boy, they roll fast. And yes, that's helpful on descents, but it's more noticeable on climbs. I've been spending a lot of time lately on Polygon's newest lightweight EMTB, the Colossus TLE. And I'm telling you, I rode actually this exact same trail recently, and like, this bike is barely more fatiguing than that e-bike. And a lot of that comes down, really all of that comes down to the bike's low weight and these light, fast rolling tires. So I can't emphasize the importance enough of this lightweight build, how great that feels on the trail. All right, let's move on now and talk about word number 2, which is durable. And to be honest, frame design has gotten so good these days that really, unless you're, hucking your bike off of a 2-story building to flat, you don't really need to worry about, frames cracking. So a lot of this durability comes down to components. I'm thankful to say that the components spec'd on the XF 9.6 DC are proper. Starting with suspension, I already mentioned, you have 130 millimeters in the rear, and that's taken care of by a RockShox Super Deluxe Select Plus shock, which is really hard to say when you're winded. And then up front, you have a RockShox Pike Select. Both of those have modern dampers that, don't have the greatest range of adjustment, but sometimes, I feel like that's better. And too much fiddling with rebound and compression just takes away from the fun you'll have on the trail. Another dialed piece of componentry on this bike is the Shimano group set. You get essentially a full SLX drivetrain with just a Dior cassette, and then 4-piston Dior brakes. The addition of 4-piston brakes on this bike is awesome. Some more budget-leaning short travel bikes will save money by putting weaker 2-piston brakes on. This bike is deserving of these 4 pistons. It's fast, and those brakes stop it quickly, keeping you secure and building confidence. Lastly, you've got some DT Swiss M1900 wheels. DT Swiss are arguably one of the most respectable wheel brands on the market. So it's great to see them spec'd here. And yes, they're strong and robust. And, should something fail at some point in time, really easy to find replacement parts for and easy to service on your own. Last but not least, the third and arguably most important word that we need to cover out of this 3-word rule of my dad's is affordable. And the affordability of this bike comes from 2 things. Number 1, Superior. They're a smaller brand. They don't have that, name brand tax. And they really do prioritize affordability in the way they build and spec their bikes. They're not wasting money putting on say RockShox ultimate level suspension that really, if you're not a suspension guru, you're not going to be able to make the most out of all of those twisty turny knobs. They're putting the money where it matters with good brakes, good drivetrain, and of course, that lightweight carbon frame. But the other element here comes from BikesOnline. We buy bikes directly from the manufacturer instead of going through a distributor, and then sell them to you on an online interface instead of, having a brick and mortar bike shop. And that saves us money, and we pass on those savings to you. And that's why, whether it's Superior or Polygon or any of the other bikes that we carry, you're likely going to find lower prices here than really anywhere else. So if you're watching this, Dad, I challenge you to come up and visit me, try this bike out, and see for yourself if it breaks your rule of being light, durable, and affordable. It's honestly blowing me away. But let's head back and we can recap some of my thoughts and then give you a couple suggestions of who I think the Superior XF 9.6 DC is for. So hopefully, as you've already seen, the Superior XF 9.6 DC really does break my dad's old 2 out of 3 rule. Usually, you'd expect a Carbon XC frame paired with RockShox suspension and DT Swiss wheels to land you in the lightweight and durable, but not affordable category. But thanks to Superior's smart part specing and BikesOnline's unique business model, you get a bike that delivers race-worthy weight with trail-worthy toughness, all at a price that can't be beat. It's one of the few cases where you've got a bike that doesn't really force you to compromise. What's even more impressive though, from a rider's perspective, is how balanced it all feels on the trail. Obviously, it should come as no surprise that the bike was quick and efficient on the climbs, but I was honestly blown away by how capable, and more importantly, fun, the 9.6 DC was on the descents. I've said it before, but it's worth repeating. I really think this comes down to the combination of the XC-inspired frame and the more rugged trail bike components. If you have any more questions about the Superior XF 9.6 DC, then you can leave those in the comments and I'll be sure to get you an answer. While you're there, I'd appreciate it if you take just a second to go ahead and like this video. Of course, subscribe to the Bikes Online YouTube channel. After you've done that, grab your bike, whatever it is, get out there and get ripping.